The Washington Commanders finished the 2025 season a disappointing 5-12 and third in the NFC East. So with the disappointing season out of the way, in this video, we're going to be doing a mock-off season for the Washington Commanders. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're new and going to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So the way that this video is going to work is we are going to begin by talking about what happened in 2025. We'll then talk about their salary cap situation. We'll open up some money. We'll talk about my free agency plan. And at the very end of the video, I will be doing a 3-round mock draft. With that said, let's talk about the 2025 season because, let's be honest, as I mentioned in the intro of this video, it was disappointing to say the least. After a year where you made it to the NFC Championship game, a year in which Jaden Daniels was unbelievable, especially down the playoff stretch, the team finished the year 5-12, had a very disappointing season. You can see Daniels was in and out of the lineup with injuries. And unfortunately, that was kind of the name of the game for the Commanders in the 2025 season. The injuries just caught up to them. They had some older players who did not play up to their usual status. Guys like Marshawn Lattimore, Von Miller obviously didn't do a whole bunch of great things this year. Terry McLaurin was out for most of the season. Jaden Daniels, their starting quarterback, was out for most of the year. And what you saw from this team is the lack of depth on this roster. You saw that once the first wave of guys went down, the team did not have enough stacked up players from the previous regime's failures, and it really affected the team this year in 2025. Now, even if Jaden Daniels was somehow managed to stay healthy for the entire season, I still don't think Washington would have made it back to the NFC Championship game. I think they would have been in competition for probably the 7th or 6th seed in the NFC wildcard spots, and they probably would have lost in the first or second round. And Washington has a talented football team. It's not like they need to go back down to the roots and make everything over again. They have some things to work with here, mainly a star quarterback in Jaden Daniels. But that's kind of what happened in 2025. You can really chalk up 2025 down to injuries, bad luck, and a lack of depth. But now let's go ahead and look at the future. What does their salary cap look like? Well, the good news for the Washington Commanders is they have a ton of money they can open up, and they already have a ton of money to work with. $76 million in open team cap space. And after we just make 3 simple moves, we're going to be able to open up around $123 million. Those moves are quite simple. Either a trade or a cut post June 1st for Daron Payne. Let's just say a trade. That'll open you up about $22.3 million right there, just under $100 million in open cap space. You then go to Marshawn Lattimore, really easy. Pre-June 1st cut him, $18.5 million in savings. Now you're up to $116 million. If we scroll down to Nick Allegretti, if you cut him post-June 1st, you save $6 million. And as you can see, we are up to about $123 million in open cap space. There are other moves you can make as well if you want to restructure a deal like Sam Cosmi or Larry Tunsil. Maybe you want to cut Javon Kinlaw. There are some other additional things you can do this offseason, but with $123 million, there really isn't a necessary need to do that. But we have $123 million now to operate with. We do have some free agents that we're going to need to bring back. So let's go ahead and look at who I want to re-sign in the 2026 Commanders free agent market. The good news for Washington is they really don't have a ton of guys they desperately need to bring back. You could make the argument that Deebo Samuel, if he wants to return on a cheaper deal, could be maybe the biggest name here that you would bring back, but frankly, I don't feel like it's necessary to do so, given the fact he's 30 years of age, played a pretty good season, but I would like to get a lot younger. It's the same reason why I'm not going to bring back Bobby Wagner or Zach Ertz or Von Miller or Jonathan Jones or Austin Eckler or Andrew Wiley. It just doesn't make sense to bring back those guys unless they're going to play a role for us in the immediate future. Which brings me to Marcus Mariota, who I will bring back on a 2-year, $18 million deal. He's one of the better backup quarterbacks out there. We saw this year with Jaden Daniels not being able to stay healthy that Mariota was able to keep the team afloat. You bring him in, you give him a little bit of a pay increase. It's about $9 million per year. We'll bring back Marcus Mariota. I'll also bring back Deatrich Wise, who is an older player, but I feel like with how bad the edge rushing room is for this team, if I can bring Deatrich Wise back for like a 1-year, $1.5 to $2 million deal, why not? It might even just be like $1 million. We'll bring back Deatrich Wise, who was injured for most of the season, but has shown that he can get after the quarterback a little bit. I want him to be like our 2nd or 3rd string edge rusher. Obviously, Tress Way, the punter, going to bring him back on a 2-year, $4 million deal. I felt like this was the #1 guy that Commanders fans wanted to bring back, so we'll bring him back for sure. We'll bring back Jeremy McNichols on a really cheap 1-year, $1.5 million deal. He's going to be our future, I guess not future, he's 31, but he's going to be our RB3. And other than that, I guess we can bring back Treylon Burks. We'll bring back Treylon Burks, who had a decent year for the team. We'll bring him back on a 2-year, $3 million deal. The only other name that I would maybe consider bringing back would be like a Jacob Martin and Noah Igbenogany. But I just don't feel like it's necessary. So to recap the players we are going to bring back, we're going to bring back Tressway on a 2-year, $4 million deal, Marcus Mariota on a 2-year, $18 million deal, Jeremy McNichols on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, Deatrich Wise on a 1-year, $1 million deal, and Traylon Burks to a 2-year, $3 million deal. A lot of cheaper contracts there. We went from about $123 million in open cap space down to about 107.8. We'll round up to $108 million. So that is plenty of money to work with. And honestly, it's too much money to work with during the off seasons. Now, before we get into my free agency plan, I do want to mention some team needs. These are positions that I would like to upgrade for this roster. And guys, there's kind of a lot of them. Let's start off with maybe their biggest need. They need help in the secondary, specifically corner. You do have Trey Amos and you do have Mike Sainristil. The thought process, I think, for Washington was to have Trey Amos, Sainristil, and Marshawn Lattimore. And you feel confident about Mike Sainristil, especially if he's going to be your primary, I would say, slot corner, who can also play a little bit of outside corner too. I mean, he's done a lot of that with Washington. And then you do have Trey Amos, who had an up and down rookie year. Obviously, the injury was unfortunate. Had he played the entire season, I think there would be more clarity as to who their CB1/2 of the future will be. But I do think you have to plan long-term for Trey Amos to be a part of your rotational guys. But I still think we need one, maybe even two corners in the offseason. I think edge rusher is also a massive need for this team. When you look at who they got production from this year in the sack department, it's kind of crazy. Von Miller had 9 sacks on the season. He's 30-something years old. I mean, if you want to bring him back for cheap, sure, go ahead. But outside of Von Miller, who again might retire this year, it's Dorrance Armstrong, who had 5.5 sacks, Jacob Martin, who had 5.5 sacks, Jerzon Newton, who had 5 sacks, and then Bobby Wagner also threw in 4.5 right there. We need somebody who can just take over games. The good news for Washington is that there are a couple of really good edge rushers in this draft class. So for the Washington Commanders, you could potentially get one there. I will definitely also be taking a look in the free agent market as well to maybe add some depth, some rotational pieces, because you feel good about the combination of Dorrance Armstrong, Jerzon Newton, and a potential high draft pick, but you're also going to need the depth behind them, so keep that in mind. I think linebacker is a need too. Obviously, Frankie Louvu is a really good football player, but Bobby Wagner at this stage of his career, with how old he is, he's might be done at this point. Still a good football player, but you have seen how his lack of explosiveness and his age at this point can hurt this defense. I would like to get a lot younger in that linebacker room. If I can find one in free agency and maybe even in the draft, again, really good linebacker draft class, I would love to do so. I'll speed through these next ones. I think safety, especially a coverage safety, would be great. Maybe you do go Caleb Downs. Maybe you wait for a later draft pick because it is, again, a deep safety class. I think wide receivers in need. You have Terry McLaurin. Outside of him, what do you have? Nothing really that's special. I think tight end, Zach Ertz, season-ending injury, probably going to end up retiring. I think you need a starting tight end. And then I also think like an RB, especially if there's like a difference maker we can find. You do have Jacory Krosky-Merritt. You do have Chris Rodriguez. We did bring back Jeremy McNichols. Obviously, I think Krosky-Merritt has a ton of talent, but I think if we can find somebody to pair up next to him who's a bit special, then I think we should do it. We do have $100+ million to work with, so we should be able to find one. But those are our need. Again, corner, edge rusher, linebacker, safety, wide receiver, tight end, and running back. Some are more pressing needs than others, but you get my point. But with that said, let us go ahead and hop into my free agency plan. And we are going to begin with Tariq Woolen on a 4-year, $72 million deal. So I love the idea of putting Tariq Woolen in this Commanders team. Now, there's a pretty good chance that Seattle might try to bring him back. And honestly, with the way that his season kind of finished off, I think they definitely should. I think Tariq Woolen will be a perfect fit for what Dan Quinn does. He's big, 6'4", 205, really good in zone, really good in man. You can see 61.2 overall grade, 70.7 run defense grade, 61.7 coverage grade, had a pick this season. If you go back to 2024, you can see a bit more productive in terms of interceptions, a 65.7 coverage grade. And as somebody who knows very well what Dan Quinn is looking for, let's not forget who he had back in 2020, I think it was 2021, in Trayvon Diggs, who a lot of people compare prime Trayvon Diggs to current Tariq Woolen, a longer, lengthier, leaner, faster corner who's got excellent ball skills and is very aggressive. That's Tariq Woolen to a T. And I think Tariq Woolen within a Dan Quinn system could be an exceptional CB1 or a CB2, depending on what happens in the draft and what happens with Trey Amos. I think by bringing in Rick Woolen, it just checks a lot of boxes for this team. They need a difference maker in the back end. They need somebody with some length and some size to pair up with Trey Amos. And Rick Woolen's also really good against the run, and Trey Amos could be as well because they have so much size and length to them. So I just feel like this was an instant plug and play guy. That's about $18 million per season. That number could fluctuate. I've seen numbers go as high as 20, some numbers go as low as 16. I kind of just went right in the middle with 18 million per year. I think this could be, I don't want to say a home run hit, but a really solid pickup for this team. Next up, we're going to bring in Nakobe Dean on a 3-year, $30 million deal. So Nakobe Dean is a really good football player. This year, you can kind of throw away these numbers. I mean, he only played 156 run snaps this year, so that 42.9 you can't really take too much into. If you go back to 2024, though, where he played a full season of 857 snaps, 80.4 run defense grade, 60.8 coverage grade. If you go back to 2023, you can see the numbers here. If you go back to 2022, you can see the numbers here. Nakobe Dean's one big issue is just the health issue with him. He is 5'11", 231, but he's a stout player. He's really good against the run. When he's healthy, when he's been out there, he's been incredible. The question is just going to be, can he manage to stay healthy? Because he's dealt with injuries a couple times throughout his career. 3 years, $30 million. I would give him that deal, but I would also set up the contract to where maybe it's front loaded and maybe there's like a potential out after the second season in case the injuries do end up affecting him. But he is 25 years old. I think his play style would pair very nicely to a Frankie Louvu, very much downhill guys that can shed off blocks, smart football players. I still would like to find another linebacker in the draft if we can find one. I think like a Jacob Rodriguez in like round 3 could be very enticing. After Nakobe Dean, we're going to pick up Kyle Pitts on a 3-year, $45 million deal. Now, if your cup of tea is more so an Isaiah Likely, then I'm okay with that. But I think Kyle Pitts is a better football player than Isaiah Likely. He's a lot more proven. He's got a lot more success. And in the back half of last year, he worked his way into a pretty nice payday. I think with where this offense currently sits for Washington, I think they need more difference makers. I think you can find, or maybe they already have, good blocking tight ends. I feel like you need a difference maker in the receiving game because, frankly speaking, Jaden Daniels loves tight ends, and this Commanders team loves tight ends too. Look at how much success Zach Ertz had the past 2 years. And Zach Ertz is in his mid-30s. You put a Kyle Pitts out there who I think can stretch the field vertically, can work the seams, is a pretty solid route runner. Sure, he's not the best blocker in the world, but he is functional at it. With his size, his length, his ability, I think he'd be a perfect complement to what Jaden Daniels wants and needs. And he's also not too expensive, $15 million per year. That's it's a fairly high paid player. I think kind of like I talked about with Nakobe Dean, I would probably structure Pitt's contract in a similar-ish way where maybe you front load the contract or maybe you have some sort of, I don't know, less guaranteed money towards the back end. So that way in year 3, year 2, it's not going to hurt you too much when you're trying to pay Jaden Daniels that massive contract. Because Jaden has probably maybe 3 more years under his rookie deal. So by the time the deal's up here, or by the time the guarantees are up with the Pitts deal, you can then go ahead and pay Jaden. And if Pitts didn't work out, you should be able to cut him, free of charge. But I think Pitts could work out great for this team. I think he has gotten better year in and year out. I think in Atlanta, he might end up getting paid by Stefanski. I could definitely see that. But if Atlanta decides to let him walk and go elsewhere for the tight end room, maybe they think they can find a better one in the draft that fits Stefanski's system better, I think the Commanders should be all over this one. After that, we're going to bring in Rico Dowell on a 2-year, $13 million deal. So the running back position in free agency is tricky. I know there's going to be a lot of people who just say go for a Breece Hall. And look, if Breece Hall is interested in Washington, yeah, run that in. I think Breece Hall would be great for this team. I just feel like he's probably either going to get franchise tagged or return to the Jets. I think he will be a Jet next year. So my other options were like Kenneth Walker. I don't think Walker's leaving. I think he's probably definitely going to be back in Seattle. Javonte Williams, who probably is going to return to Dallas yet again. And guys kind of on that line. I was looking for somebody a little bit younger who probably will be going to a new team. I think Rico Dowell kind of fits the mold. Now, you do have Krosky Merritt, who I think will probably be your RB1 next year, and Rico can definitely be that complement piece. In fact, I think you can maybe even at times start Rico Dowell, who we've seen over the last 2 years. He was a 1,000-yard rusher with the Dallas Cowboys. Last year with Carolina, it was kind of weird because he had this really dominant stretch of games where he had like 100, 200 rushing yards in like 4 straight games. And then Chuba Hubbard came back into the fold, and they just slowly reduced the amount of work on Rico Dowell, which I thought was a little bit weird. I mean, Chuba Hubbard's a good player, but I thought it was a little weird. And we know that Rico's probably not returning to Carolina because you can tell he was kind of pissed off at how things ended over there. In Washington, he would bring them an explosive, a bit more physical downhill presence who's got the ability to hit that second gear. You pair that up with a very explosive and twitched up athlete in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I just feel like that makes for a really fun running back 1 and 2. It also, like, Ja'Cory is an older, I mean, he was an older rookie. He's like 23, 24 years old. So you're talking about somebody that already has, you know, a bit more age to him. I think by splitting carries between these two running backs, it could help, you know, extend the length of Krosky-Merritt's prime, you could say. I also didn't want to spend a draft pick on one because this team, spoiler alert, doesn't have a ton of draft capital this year. So I didn't want to go too far and not pick up a running back. After Rico Dow, we're going to bring in Kingsley Enagbare on a 3-year, $18 million deal. So this is a name that a lot of people aren't talking about. He's one of the few edge rushers this year that you can get for fairly cheap and also, you know, not be 50 years old. Kingsley's 26 years old. He's been kind of a rotational piece within the Green Bay pass rushing room. And you can see he's put up some decent numbers. This is 2025. 3 sacks, 31 solo tackles. You can see the grades are pretty good. This is back in 2024. He had 5 sacks, a 64.5 run defense grade with a 57.8 pass rush grade. He's well put together. This is not somebody who I think will start for you. I definitely think he's going to be in your second rotation. Again, I'm going to try and prioritize a dominant edge rusher in the draft. And then obviously you'll also have Dorrance Armstrong there too. So you have Dorrance Armstrong, Kingsley, a pass rusher from this year's draft class, and Dietrich Wise and some other guys we might sign as well. I know that there might be some conversations about Jalen Phillips. That's kind of the big name floating around Washington because he is this younger, twitched up, athletic edge rusher. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are probably going to re-sign him. And if they don't, then I do think Washington is 100% in play here. Like if Washington can get Jalen Phillips, I think you do so. But I just feel like Philadelphia wouldn't trade a high draft pick just to have him as like a 1-year rental. That would be something that Philadelphia just doesn't typically do. So again, if Philly does let him walk, which I'd be surprised with, I think Washington should be all over it, but I'm going to assume they bring him back. So with that said, Kingsley is one of the few younger edge rushers that kind of fits what I'm looking for Dan Quinn. Next up, we're going to bring in Logan Hall on a 2-year, $18 million deal. So Logan Hall, and to me, is a better fit within a 3-4, but I think for what Washington could use on the interior, just somebody who can be a disruptor next to Jerzon Newton, I think Logan Hall fits the mold. He's 6'6", 283, and this is via PFF, 25 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, all grades within the 60s overall pass rush and run defense. If you go to 2024, you can see some very similar numbers. Did have 6 sacks on the season, though. The interior defensive line for agent market is, let's be honest, shit. It's really bad. The only name out there that I thought about was like a John Franklin Myers, but I don't know. I feel like John Franklin Myers and Jerzon Newton are kind of similar. And I'm not really looking for like a bona fide star. I wanted to find someone that I could pay less than $10 million to, who was younger. Logan Hall is 25 years old, who was well put together, could play on multiple downs, specifically could get after the quarterback a little bit. I know this one might feel like maybe a bit of unnecessary move, but we have so much money to work with. I think he can be a good fit. He could play a little bit outside, play a little bit inside. He could just kind of be a second and third down guy, and will rotate probably in a bigger nose tackle for early downs or more obvious passing downs. And lastly, the last move we're going to make for this video is going to be bringing in Brandon Ayuk on a 1-year, I don't know, $1 million deal. So after we sign Woolen, Dean, Pitts, Dowell, Enagbare, and Hall, we still have $43 million to work with. I have literally zero clue what Brandon Ayuk is going to bring in, because I have a feeling that 49ers are going to cut him. And if they cut him, what is his market looking like? I'd have to imagine it's not great. So my general guess is like 1-year, $10 million deals. Like I truly have no clue. So I didn't want to put a number here. Again, we have $43 million to work with. We'll talk about what we'll do with the rest of that money here in a second. But of that 43, if it's like a pie chart, you can give whatever amount of that to Ayuk that he might be looking for. Now, Ayuk is a massive red flag. I mean, he's a massive red flag. That's why I'm giving him a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year prove it deal where you have to prove to us that you are going to buy into this culture, you're going to buy in with Jaden Daniels, and you're looking like the former version you used to look like. You're looking like Brandon Ayuk. Because frankly speaking, the way that things ended in San Francisco was so ugly and so unnecessary, and honestly just not a good look for him, that I feel like his market is like in the tube. The only reason why Washington makes sense is, well, Jaden played with Ayuk at Arizona State. They have a great friendship. It seems like there's obviously some interest between Washington and Ayuk. So if Ayuk does hit the open market, I think Washington would be wise to bring him in. I believe it will be a 1-year deal, though. It's a massive prove-it deal. If you go out there and ball out, prove to be a great compliment to Terry McLaurin and potentially Kyle Pitts, cool, we'll bring you in, we'll bring you back on a long-term deal after this year. But I think, I don't know the number, so I'm not even going to try and sit up here and tell you guys in a number. I think it'll probably be somewhere in the double digits, but I don't know where. So we brought in Brandon Ayuk as well. We still have a couple $1 million to work with. I'm going to save the rest of that money to go towards our draft class and to also go to adding depth pieces. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys with random backup third string offensive tackles. If we have $20 million to work with on depth options, I want Washington to spend every single dollar on 1-2 year deals on quality rotational pieces. Because we saw last year with Washington, when the injuries piled up, they did not have a guy that they could trust in the back end or on the offensive line or in the receiving room. Let's bring in some depth. That's what the rest of the money will be spent on. But with that said, let us go ahead and hop into our 3-round mock draft. So as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator. The Washington Commanders have the 7th overall pick. I'm going to make it a 5th round. I'm going to add a 5-round mock draft because I don't even know if Washington has a 4th or a 2nd, or I don't even know if they have a 5th round pick. But just so I can give you guys as many picks as possible, we'll run this through. You can see 771, 145, 186, and 223. Tough stuff right there. We're up at number 7, and boy, the board fell how I was not looking for it to do. Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, Downs, and David Bailey all come off the board. Tough break for us right here. I think we can maybe try and do a trade down here because I want to get an edge rusher. And if I can trade back a couple spots, I would think TJ Parker would make a lot of sense. Or we can even maybe potentially go after somebody else here. If we can pick up like a 2nd round pick, we could then go after like an R. Mason Thomas or one of these guys. So I think let's look at a potential trade back here. I think the question would be who's going to trade up. And I don't know. Honestly, this is a draft class where I don't think a lot of teams will look to trade up. But, you know, we'll maybe force a little trade here. Let's do some trade action. Maybe Miami has their eyes set on Carnell Tate. So let's do a trade back with Miami here. Maybe they want Carnell Tate to pair up with Jalen Waddle, which, boy, that would be awesome. They're moving up 4 spots. I don't think it would be 43. I think it'd probably be something with one of their 3/3. Let's take 87 here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like a future 5th. I'll just throw that in there. I think that would be around the range we're talking about here. You're moving up 4 spots. In fact, it might be this pick here. It probably might not be that one. It might be this one. So let's do 11, 75, and a 5th round pick next year to move up 4 spots. I know that some people might say, well, the Rams got a 1st round pick. Yeah, but they traded out of the 1st round. I think this one's a little bit different. You're moving back 4 spots in a not so loaded draft class, and we pick up an additional 3rd. So let's run this one through. Maybe the draft capital wasn't the best, but you get my point. So we're back up here at number 11, and I think I'm going to go with Sonny Styles here. I think I'm going to go Sonny Styles, or I could go Mansour Delane, and maybe we can kick either Amos or Sainristil still to like a safety position. I wonder if maybe that checks some boxes, but I think I will stick with Sonny Styles just because Luvu's so good when he's coming downhill. He's so much better as like a pure blitzer. And then with Nakobe Dean, I love Dean to death, but man, he can just never stay healthy. Sonny Styles fills a role. I think he could play as like a true weak side, a true middle linebacker, however you want him to work. He's got good coverage chops. He's so good downhill. He's such an athletic player. We'll take Sonny Styles there at number 11, which brings us now to our 2 3-round picks. And by the way, if I'm Washington, I'm looking to trade down out of that 1st. Honestly, if I'm Washington at number 7, if they call me at 16 and they're going to give me a 2nd or and a 4th, I'm probably taking it because we don't have a ton of draft picks this year. So anyways, we're back up at 71. We just took Sonny Styles, and we have 3 picks to operate with here. I think a receiver would make a lot of sense, specifically somebody like a Skylar Bell, who can play a lot in the slot for us. Chris Brazzell gives you a lot of speed, which obviously Jaden Daniels, I think, would love that. I think that makes some sense here for Skylar Bell, although we could wait till 75 to do that. just kind of thinking what else we maybe could do here. Let's look at the edge rushing room here, where, man, it really thinned out for us. Malachi Lawrence is a really solid pass rusher. If he makes it to that 145, we'll have that conversation about Lawrence and Nadeem Tucker. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name right. Deni Dennis Sutton also checks some boxes here. He's kind of a raw player, 6'5", 265, but I feel like he really fits the mold for what this team would look for. Let's, Kamari Ramsey, we just took the corner. He can play safety. I feel like he's not a fit for Dan Quinn. I don't know. I just don't think he'd be the type of fit for Dan Quinn. I guess let's look at other safeties too. Like Zakee Wheatley, I think checks a lot of boxes. It does feel a little early for him, but I don't know. I think I might consider it just Zakee Wheatley right here. I think he's a great football player with a good size, good athleticism. I think let's take the receiver here. Let's go with, I think that Commanders fans would want Zachariah Branch. I think that he is, I'll be honest with you, I think he's overrated in this class. I think Skylar Bell is the much better prospect. I'm gonna go with Skylar Bell here. If you want pure adrenaline, pure speed, 1,000 miles per hour, yeah, go Zachariah Branch. I think he is very overrated, though. I think you need a technical slot receiver that can consistently get open, not somebody who gets 90% of his production within 3 yards. Let's go Skylar Bell here for the Commanders. And then with our second, third round pick, again, we traded back with Miami, who, by the way, we didn't look at who Miami took. Miami took Carnell Tate. Okay, so they did take Carnell Tate there. All right, so far we got Sonny Styles and Skylar Bell. I think maybe we go Zakee Wheatley here. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. Or we go Deni Dennis Sutton. We have to get better in the edge room. We did not get the one that I was kind of hoping for. You know, maybe we could have drafted Cassius Howell, but I don't think Cassius Howell is a first-round pick. That's just my opinion. We go Deni Dennis Sutton here. We'll add him into the rotation. He's got a ton of upside. Like, I mean a ton. So we'll take him. And then here we are at 145. Sonny Styles, Skylar Bell, and Deni Dennis Sutton. I think that's a pretty good draft class so far. Let's see. Maybe we could go, honestly, double down at edge with Malachi Lawrence. He's a big dude. You think he'd be strong against the run. He's not really good against the run, but he is a really good pass rusher, which, I mean, maybe that's exactly what this team could use. He had a really good Senior Bowl, like a really good Senior Bowl. I don't know if he'll be here at 145. This feels a little low for me. I don't know. He might not be here at 145. Maybe he would. I don't know. Maybe he would be. I don't know. We have a tight end. I mean, I feel like tight end's fine. We can wait till this team has a couple other third round pick or day 3 picks. I think we could wait on a tight end. So we just also brought in Kyle Pitts. They don't need a quarterback. Cade Klubnik. Trey Moore is an interesting prospect. I think he's a pretty good edge rusher. He should have played edge. He played edge at Texas in 2024. He was pretty solid for them. And in 2025, they kind of moved him more as like an off-ball linebacker and played him more, you can see a bit more in the box when he's usually an edge rusher. I thought that was kind of weird. I just don't know if he has the juice off the edge. I feel like there's other guys here that I'd rather have. Do we maybe look at, this is tough, interior defensive line maybe? Cole Brevard, Demontre Capehart. I like him quite a bit. He's got a little bit of some juice, just a little bit of upside to him. Xavier Harris, yeah. Zane Durant was pretty good at the Senior Bowl, by the way. Same with Rayshon Benny. Let's do an edge rusher here. Let's double down. We took Deni Dennis Sutton. Let's take Malachi Lawrence. I think he's got a ton of upside to be a really good pass rusher, but he's got a lot of work to do as a run defender. But that's fine. We have good run defenders as is. We just need somebody who can come off the edge, put some pressure on the quarterback. So this right here is our mock draft. We traded back with the Miami Dolphins to pick up an additional third and a future 5th round pick. It could be like a 4th round pick. Again, this capital is probably not perfect, but it was only 4 spots back, so it checked out. We took Sonny Styles. He's going to be our long-term replacement for Bobby Wagner. We also have Nakobe Dean and Frankie Louvu. I want to send Frankie Louvu after the quarterback as much as possible. We got Skylar Bell to be our slot receiver, Deni Dennis Sutton and Malachi Lawrence to both come off the edge. But guys, I'm going to quickly try and recap and give you guys the full depth chart for this team. So if I make any mistakes, please let me know in the comment section below. Quarterback will be Jaden Daniels. Our running backs are going to be Rico Dowell, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and you can also throw Chris Rodriguez in there. Our wide receivers are going to be Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Skylar Bell, and Treylon Burks. Our tight ends are going to be Ben Sinnott and Kyle Pitts. Our offensive line, our tackles are going to be Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connerly. Our interior offensive line is going to be Tyler Biadasz, Sam Cosmi, and Brandon Coleman. On the defensive side of things, our 2 edge rushers are going to be Dorrance Armstrong, Deni Dennis Sutton, Kingsley Enagbari, and if you want to bring back Jacob Martin for cheap, you can bring Jacob Martin back. Our linebackers are going to be Sonny Styles, Frankie Louvu, and Nakobe Dean. Our cornerbacks are going to be Trey Amos, Tariq Woolen, Mike Sainristil, and maybe Noah Igbenogany for cheap. And our safeties are going to be Jeremy Reeves, Quan Martin, and Will Harris. I don't think it was the perfect rebuild, but I think we did enough good things for the Washington Commanders that we can set ourselves up for success down the road. I don't think all of a sudden after this offseason they're going to be contending for a title, but we got significantly younger. If you look at basically every move I made, it's all 20-year-olds basically. We brought back every single 20-year-old possible. We got younger. I think we got better. Let me know in the comment section below though what you agree with, what you disagree with. I'd love to hear it out. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.